Page 79, number 3. Rectangle A and rectangle B are similar. So I'm going to go ahead and draw them. Rectangle, well, that's not a very good rectangle, but it's good enough. So rectangle A and rectangle B. A has a length of 6.2, so I'll make this my length. So my length equals 6.2 centimeters, and my width, I'll make this my width right here. That's going to be 5.6 centimeters. And then rectangle B has a length of 21.7. So my length is on the bottom, so I'm going to keep it on the bottom. 21.7 centimeters. And I'm looking for the perimeter of B. That's going to be all the way around B. So I'm going to have to find, remember, this side is equivalent, is congruent with this side, and this side is going to be congruent to this side. So I've got to find my width and then calculate the perimeter. So in order to find my width here, I'm going to find what's my scale factor. How many times am I multiplying 6.2 to get to 21.7? So in order to do that, I'm going to divide 21.7 divided by 6.2. Now when I divide this, if you remember me from last year, I've got Billy decimal, Betty decimal. He takes one step forward, she takes one step back. What I'm really doing here is multiplying both by 10 to get rid of this decimal outside. So I've now got 217 divided by 62. Now I'm going to write out my multiples for 62 because I don't know them. 62 plus 62 is 124, plus 62 is 186, plus 62 is 248, plus 62 is 310, plus 62 is 372, then I got 434, 496, and then 558. And you only have to write out 9 multiples ever with any division problem. You only have to go 9. So 62 goes into 21 or 2 0 times. It goes into 21 0 times. I'm keeping it lined up. 62 goes into 217 1, 2, 3 times. 3 times. Add my decimal, add my 0, bring my decimal up. 3 times 62 is 186. 217 minus 186 gives me 31. Bring down this 0. And 62 goes into 310, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Exactly 5 times. So my scale factor here is times 3.5. The length is 3.5 times bigger than this length, which means this width will be 3.5 times this width. So 5.6 times 3.5. I'm multiplying here. 5 times 6 is 30. Carry the 3. 5 times 5 plus 3 is 28. I'm going to now mark my spot. 3 times 6 is 18. Carry the 1. 3 times 5 plus 1 is 16. Now I add these up. I get 0, 16. Carry the 1, 9, and 1. And I'm bringing back this decimal 1, 2 times, 1, 2 times. So 19.6. And that's a reasonable answer. 19.6 is a reason. Did I mess up? Where did I mess up? The perimeter. So yeah, I'm not quite done. The length is 19.6. This is a little bit less than this. This is a little bit less than this. So it makes sense. So now I've got to calculate the perimeter. So the length here is 21.7, which means this up here is also going to be 21.7. This is 19.6, which means this over here will also be 19.6. So if I add all these up, 21.7 plus 21.7 plus 19.6 plus 19.6, or if you wanted to, you could do 21.7 times 2 plus 19.6 times 2, and that's going to give me the grand total of 82.6 as my perimeter, and that's in centimeters. So my perimeter all the way around is 82.6 centimeters for rectangle B. Now going on to number 4. Juan uses a map to determine the distance from his hometown to the nearest beach. The map uses a scale of 1.5 or 1.5 inches equals 45 miles. Juan measures the distance on the map to be 6 inches. How many miles does Juan travel to get to the beach? Okay, so for this one, we've got it right out of proportion. We've got 1.5 inches for every 45 miles. And we're looking for how far to get to the beach, which is 6 inches. So if I've got my inches up here, I've got to have my inches up here. 6 inches. Okay, now one thing with this, if I wanted to, I could say 1.5 inches for every 45 miles. I could do times 10 to get rid of this decimal. That would give us 15 inches for every 450 miles. Okay, so sometimes it's easier to get rid of that decimal. Here, I can do 6 divided by 1.5. 6 divided by 1.5. Once again, Billy Betty, he moves forward, she moves back. This is 60 divided by 15, or is the same thing as 60 divided by 15, which we know is 4. So the scale factor here is times 4. So 45 times 4, well 45 times 2 is 90. 90 times 2 is 180. So 45 times 4 is 180 miles. 180 miles is my distance to the beach. Now it's saying if Juan travels 70 miles from his hometown to an outlet mall, what is the distance in inches? Okay, so I've still got the same ratio. I've got 1.5 inches for every 45 miles. And I want to know, this time I want to know if I've got 70 miles. So since I have miles down here, I'm going to have to keep my miles down there. So 70 divided by 45 is what I'm going to have to do to find out what my scale factor is. Now, instead of dividing this out, if we're not using a calculator, it would be a lot easier. 70 divided by 45 could be written as a fraction like this, 70 over 45. Remember, it's top in, bottom out. I can simplify this. If it ends in 5 or 0, you can divide by 5. 70 divided by 5 is 14. 45 divided by 5 is 9. So this is the same thing as doing 14 divided by 9. And I would rather divide 14 by 9 than divide 70 by 45. It's just a little simpler when you're doing it by hand. So let's do that instead. 14 divided by 9. 9 goes into 14 one time, add a decimal, or it goes into 1 0 times. Keep your 0 there. Bring your decimal up. 1 times 9 is 9. 14 minus 9 is 5. Bring down the 0. 9 goes into 50 5 times. 5 times 9 is 45. 50 minus 45 is 5. Add another 0. Bring it down if you want. You'll notice it is repeating. It's 1.5 repeating. And if you know your ninths, which you should know your ninths, 0.5 repeating is the same thing as 5 ninths. 0.4 repeating is the same as 4 ninths. 0.3 repeating is the same as 3 ninths, and etc. So this is 1 and 5 ninths. That's my scale factor. So 45 times 1 and 5 ninths gives me 70 ninths. So 1.5 times 5 ninths is going to be, let's see, 1 1/2. 1.5 is the same as 1 1/2, so we got 1 and 1/2. Whoops, not 1/5. 1 and 1/2 times 1 and 5 ninths. Okay, let's leave these as fractions. Let's make them improper though. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So 1 1/2 is the same as 3 halves times 1 and 5 ninths is the same as 1 times 9 is 9 plus 5 is 14 over 9. We can cross simplify this. Divide by 3 is 1. Divide by 3 is 3. Then divide by 2 is 7. Divide by 2 is 1. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 3 is 3. 7/3. That's the same thing as 6/3 plus 1/3. And the reason I'm writing it like that is because 6/3, that's the same thing as 2. This is 2 and 1/3. So our distance in inches would be 2 and 1/3 inches. Moving on to number 5. Gianni sketched up the floor of his bedroom as shown below. The scale used for the drawing is 1 foot equals 3/4 of an inch. What are the actual dimensions of Gianni's bedroom floor? So, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to turn these into decimals. 7/8. If you don't know what it is, you can use a calculator, or you can just divide in, top in, bottom out. 7/8, 7 divided by 8 equals 0.875. So this is the same thing as 7.875, and 3/8 is the same thing as 0.375, and 3/4 of an inch, that's the same thing as 0.75. So we've got 0.75 or 3/4 of an inch for every 1 foot, and I want to know I want to know the dimensions, so I want to know for both of them. So first I want to know for 9.375 inches, and then I'm also gonna want to figure it out for 1 foot. This is inches. I also want to know for 7.875 inches. So let's divide these and let's take a shortcut. Let's use a calculator. So 9.375 divided by 0.75 gives me 12.5. That's my scale factor here, times 12.5. So 0.5 times 12.5 gives me 9.375. Over to the top, we got to do to the bottom. So that's going to be 1 times 12.5 is 12.5. That's one of the dimensions. This is going to be 12.5 feet in real life. And this one, so let's once again use the calculator, 7.875, which is the same thing as 7 and 7/8, divided by 0.75 is going to give me 10.5. So the scale factor here is 10.5. So 1 times 10.5 equals 10.5 feet. So this would be 10.5 feet.